It has been described as one of the biggest and arguably one of the most successful disarmament, demobilization and reintegration DDR program in the world in recent times. It is the amnesty program of the federal government of Nigeria for ex-agitators in the country's Niger Delta. It marked its second year anniversary on the 4th of October 2011. Today, the man appointed and commissioned by the authority of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Goodluck Jonathan, to oversee the successful implementation of the three-staged process of the amnesty program, Honorable Kingsley Kuku presents his scorecard, which has received wide acknowledgement and mark of distinction by the beneficiaries and stakeholders. We bring to you the story of the amnesty program 2 years after. This is the amnesty program update, brought to you by the Office of the Special Advisor to the President on Niger Delta.
The situation is evident in the statistics we have. At the peak of the conflict in the Niger Delta in 2009, oil production was 700,000 barrels per day. Today, Nigeria is producing 2.5 and sometimes producing 2.8 million barrels per day in declared OPEC contribution. That means that the moment the federal government is able to explore and begin to drill from the fields in Bayelsa, in Nebe Creek and other areas, and other parts of the country, particularly Rivers, Bayelsa, Delta, I am very, very confident we can able to produce 3.5 million barrels per day. If that is what amnesty has taken us to, you cannot but thank these men who are here. We cannot but thank the late president and the then vice president, who today, incidentally, by providence and by the mandate of the Nigerian people, is President today, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan.
This is the Amnesty Program Update, brought to you by the Office of the Special Advisor to the President on Niger Delta.
For years, up until the proclamation of unconditional amnesty by the federal government of Nigeria on June 25, 2009, the story of the Niger Delta region was that of armed unrest, as youth activists engaged the government by whatever means in protest against the sordid conditions of the region. Nigeria's means of economic survival as a nation was seriously under threat. Oil production fell to an all-time low of 700,000 barrels per day. More seriously, unity and ultimate survival of the Nigerian state was also under threat. Then came President Umar Musa Yar'Adua, now late, who yielded to quality advice from a cross-section of Nigerians, particularly the then Vice President, who is now the President, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, and decisively proclaimed amnesty for the agitators in the creeks of Nigeria's Niger Delta. On October 4, 2009, after 60 days of disarmament, 20,192 militant leaders, their lieutenants and loyalists voluntarily handed over to the Nigerian government one of the largest assortments of military weaponry in Africa's recent history, in what was codenamed the disarmament phase of the amnesty program. Thus began the three-stage process of the amnesty program. Quickly following the disarmament phase was the non-violence transformational training, otherwise called the demobilization of the 20,192 ex-agitators. That demobilization phase commenced subsequently as they were divided into batches totaling 17 and sent systematically to a demobilization camp in Obubra, Cross River State. A landmark was recorded on September 24, 2011, when the last batch 17 of the 20,192 ex-agitators who first enrolled in the DDR program completed their demobilization program. President Goodluck Jonathan, represented at the event by the Minister of State for the Niger Delta, Hajia Zainab Ibrahim Kuchi, described the amnesty program as a tremendous success.
2 years on, the proclamation and the subsequent amnesty, disarmament and demobilization, reintegration programs have aided the speedy return of safety, security, and even sustainable development in the state and the Niger Delta.
But, as Kingsley Kuku passionately recollects, getting the demobilization phase through was another major challenge.
When it was time to get a place for demobilization, we had all the states of the Niger Delta. Everybody, almost everybody was escaping. I mean, where we go do this demobilization camp? If you talk to this state, they will say, no, we don't get space. Everybody they fear. You go to this state, I will provide one space, but house no dey there. How we go use them? Now tent we go use, or we go use sun. You go this one, everybody, people were being careful. But the governor of Cross River State, Leah Limoke, His Excellency, he stood. He said, well, I believe that the president means so well for this country. And there is a need to support the president. There is a need to support Nigeria's move for peace. I will provide somewhere in my state.
However, as expressed by some of the beneficiaries of the program seen here in the Obubra camp, the demobilization stage of the DDR program has opened their eyes and minds to the fact that peaceful processes can be used to bring about societal change, with many committed to eschewing violence.
It has been a wonderful experience. Here in camp we've been taught about the principles or philosophies of Kenyan non-violence. And I believe I and members of my group, being Group 3, we've been able to learn that it is more honorable for us to use our mind and emotions to persuade our opponents to do the right thing instead of engaging in physical aggression.
We came here for transformation. We learn about this. Moreover, we learn about non-violence, the 6 steps of non-violence, the 6 principles of non-violence, different levels of conflict, different types of love.
It's a form of transformation program. It's not all about transforming, but it's a way of religion, in form of Christianity too.
Well, we have learned a lot. We have some foreigners who came and taught us about non-violence. As you can see, this one is firm. Foundation for ethnic human harmony in Nigeria. So they have taught us a lot, and some of the principles we want to put it in our everyday life to see how we can resolve violence.
Charles Alfin, a senior trainer at the Obubra camp, explains how the process works.
You can't really understand nonviolence until you understand violence. So therefore, these young men, the freedom fighters, understand that violence does not work. It's what you do when you don't know what to do. So it has been relatively easy after the suspicious nature was eradicated from their coming to this camp. It's been relatively easy to convince them how you can solve problems without destroying people and property. So the violence that we have seen in Nigeria has certainly helped them to understand that what they're doing doesn't work. And most people that we train say, well, if I'd have known this before we did violence. But you do violence when you don't know what to do. And this gives them an alternative. And that's why we congratulate the vision of the Nigerian government. Nowhere else in the world has this happened, only in Nigeria.
For the former president of the Ijaw Youth Council, IYC, one of the most vocal, biggest and most recognized youth bodies in the region, Chris Ekia, the DDR program has achieved what it was set up to do.
I'm excited because what we stood for has come to show that it can actually resolve a national crisis. I'm a certified nonviolent trainer, and my colleagues and friends around the world were here doing this training, and I was looking at them today, and I look at all my brothers from the creeks, and I'm excited that we can transform. It simply means that Nigeria can go places with what we have done this time around, and I think it's a big plus for this administration.
Following the achievement of closure in the disarmament component of the amnesty program on May 25, 2011, with public destruction of collected arms and ammunition in Enugu State, and the September 2011 completion of demobilization of the last batch of the 20,192 ex-agitators in the first phase of the program, Nigeria, under the able leadership of President Goodluck Jonathan, has entered the history books as perhaps the only country to achieve a successful closure to its DDR program. Even then, concerted steps have been taken in the last stage of the program, the reintegration stage. This is the stage where the ex-agitators are prepared for reinsertion into civil society. Under the reintegration component of the amnesty program, transformed ex-agitators are offered opportunity to either acquire skills or go for academic studies in their chosen field of interest within and outside the country. Latest figures indicate that about 6,000 have been placed in 63 skill acquisition centers within Nigeria and 30 vocational centers in the United States of America, Malaysia, India, South Africa, Sri Lanka, Israel, Ghana, and the United Arab Emirates. Also, 150 former agitators whose interest was in going back to school have been admitted into reputable universities in Russia, the United Arab Emirates, and Malaysia. As batch after batch pass out of the demobilization camp, they join the queue of those to proceed to the reintegration stage of the DDR program, featuring vocational training or formal education within Nigeria and overseas.